Thank you. As we welcome back Honorable Dr. Nkosazana, Honorable Mrs. Minister, Dr. Nkosazana Lamini Zuma. Welcome back.
So first I wanted to congratulate all the presenters. I think the dividend, the gender dividend, or the Brics debate as it's aptly coined, talked about this being opportunity. And I think the conversations and the discussions taking place poses the question to us is, what will we do with this opportunity? How will we identify the entry points for this opportunity that we see? And there were various factors we talked about. We talked about the different world order that we find ourselves in, the multipolar world order. We talked about the many lessons that we have learned from our histories and from policies adopted and the rich frameworks that we have in place from the global, right down to the national level, including in our own country. But what will this bloc do differently is the question. And I think the declaration coming out, or the topics that are covered in the Igoli Declaration should be about how we will do this differently and how we will understand that this is not just a cut and paste issue. It's not a policy fixer. So a policy is not going to fix the problem. A cut and paste model is not going to fix the problem. A lot of this is systemic. And you rightfully raise it, Doctor, that a number of the issues are deeply entrenched. But there are a number of positive initiatives that have taken place on this African continent, including when we started, we talk about the Africa we want. It's a vision we're pursuing. And how do we link what we have covered in that vision and how we have articulated that vision? What's those actions that we need to take collectively, connectedly, and connecting those dots? And I think that's the challenge that this gender dividend debate should answer or seek to pose as a huge question. But also, how will we do it differently? I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. How will we do this differently for the results that we want to achieve? I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much for that comment. Madam Pauline, I don't know if you would like to build on that. It's very much around the theme that's been running through today, which is about the fact that there are many plans, there are a lot of policies in terms of reform and the likes. However, you know, our chair did indicate that there are certain disparities, there's a huge disconnect in terms of the progress that's been made. We only have 7 years left till we reach 2030 in terms of reaching our SDG goals. What is it that we're going to be doing differently in order to accelerate, you know, the movement?
I think putting it boldly is really less talk and action. We need to act. Action, and I believe from what I heard from the Premier today, and this is obviously at the provisional level, a lot is being done. And it's also good when you see things happening organically at this level, as opposed to always relying on national level directives and interventions. Everyone has to take responsibility and ownership to implement and to work towards achieving those goals. And I think this is what we need to do. It's a question of ownership, owning the agenda and running with it. And this is, I believe, what WBA is also doing. This conversation, if you recall what the chairperson Lebu said this morning, we're doing things differently. We do not want to just come to the table and still talk about policies. We are coming with projects. We are coming with actions that have been carried out and actionable, you know, programs and activities that are being implemented or for which they are ready to move forward with. And this is the new thinking that we have to apply our minds to, really. Policies are in place. Are they working? Do we even assess their effectiveness? What data have we collected to be able to do such assessment? The question of accountability, transparency. So really is for us to think differently and act and make sure that we achieve those goals, and holding our policymakers accountable, but also ourselves taking that initiative of ownership and running with the programs. This is what will be, the greatest achievement, as far as I see, when women can own and run these programs and not having to wait for. Honorable Minister said this morning, we don't need to rely on men to do things for us. Let's do it ourselves, but also do it in a coordinated manner as a collective, because you can, as it was said again, you can walk fast alone, but then how far do you go? But as a collective, we can actually do more, reach our goals, and achieve whatever it is that we want to, whatever we set ourselves out to do. So it's really that kind of thinking that we need to apply our minds to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Program director has indicated we've sadly run out of time. We will give you an indication of how else, you can give your inputs post the sessions today. But I want to thank our esteemed panelists for once again, sharing so much knowledge in terms of your lived experiences. In summary, what I can summarize in terms of what came through for this session, the message is clear, Dr. Aragana. It's really, really clear. We as women have to do serious introspection. We as Africans have to do serious introspection in terms of, we need to understand the genesis of the African world and where we are and how it's very self-destructive because of the mindset. So we have to own that. And very grateful to you also, Dr. Danisa, for bringing the elephant into the room in terms of the mentality that we sometimes have as women, which is also another form of impediment in terms of what they call crab mentality, when women pull each other down, which we have to deal with if we want to get to the right airport. We need to deal with it. We need to face reality and deal with it directly. Also very, very key was the importance of, filling the pipeline with youth. However, we need to first clear this issue, this challenge that we have in terms of us. How are we going to, in this generation, fill the pipeline with the youth when we ourselves have serious issues? Very, very important. Then our ladies, our madams here, very, very key. They also reiterated the importance of us working together. Less talk, the key message was less talk and more action as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Can I impose on your program? I am told by the chairperson of WBA, Brics, that there is a question from the Secretariat of the Brics WBA that we must just attend to, posed to the panel. The last one.
Last question.
You have 2 seconds, Madam.
My sincere apologies to the facilitators. The question is posed from ourselves to our most senior, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. There have been so many amazing commendations of your leadership, Minister. Not only in South Africa, but your leadership in the context of other women and how you have pulled other women into the fray, to the center. We've heard Dr. Chiomori talk about it. We've heard Dr. Bennett talk about it. And I think in the context, Dr. Ford, of these elephants in the room, I'd love to hear our Honourable Minister's comments or her thoughts of how she has managed to debunk this issue of the pull her down. How have you managed to bring women to the fore, support women, not only in your country, but across the diaspora? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Maybe we must just go back a bit. Before 94, we argued that we must get quotas for women. And there was a lot of opposition where people were saying, no, we don't need quotas, we need merit, as though merit and quotas are mutually exclusive. And we were saying quotas focuses you to find the women you need. But if you don't, you will never get them. So that's why, for instance, in Parliament then, it was only 30%. But we said, yes, we want that quota, because otherwise there would have not been anyone. There could have been just men going to Parliament. So when we then went to Foreign Affairs, for instance, when I got there were only 7 women ambassadors. And it wasn't because you couldn't find them. Nobody was looking for them. So we looked for them, we found them, there were many, including our premier here. She was ambassador to Czech Republic. We got her, we found her. You must look for women, you'll find them. And there must be a policy that you want to look for them. You want to find them. And that's why I'm a big supporter of quotas. The quotas focuses the mind, which where do we find 50% of women? Or where do we find 30% of women? So I would still say, even now, if it's possible to get quotas in the various areas where we want women, even with the banks, they must tell us what proportion of their money goes to women or to women businesses. So for me, that's it. You look for women, you'll find them. But let me also say, it's not without opposition, but you have to stand your ground. You have to stand your ground and say, this is what I would like to have. And if we are in a position of authority, then you do it. But if they bucket you once and you turn back, you will never do it. You must just keep going. They back you go, they back you go, until they see there's no way. Until they can see there's no way of pushing you back, then they will let you. Because women, unfortunately, always have to fight to get in. It's very rare that you'll find the door wide open for you to come in. Even in Parliament, if you remember, the first cabinet had only 2 women, 2 in this country. And we went to President Madiba, Mandela, and said, President, there are only 2 of us. It was Stella, may her soul rest in peace, and myself. And we said, only 2. Then he said, okay, I promise whenever there is an opportunity, I will appoint a woman. And he did. I think when we finished the first term, we were 4 or 5. And then after that, more came in. But also, even society, when we were going to Parliament, they were saying, what do these women know about Parliament? What did the men know? We're all going to Parliament for the first time. So the narrative was, what do these women know about Parliament? We didn't know anything about Parliament, just as the men didn't know. So that would be my answer, that look for them, keep going. You'll find opposition, but try and just soldier on. And you'll get them, very brilliant women. And You surround yourself with people who are brighter than you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you so much. I must say, in my youth, my young journey, I've seen so many women that you have given an opportunity. You don't know me, but I've seen so many women that you've given an opportunity, and we want to thank you for being exemplary against the backdrop of the previous statements that we made in terms of how some women don't give each other a chance. So thank you for being that role model for us. We have our final question.
Thank you.
If you can indicate who you are and who your question is directed to as well.
Okay, my name is Tembisa Jimana. I work for Ezemvelo Wildlife. I'm also the Treasurer General of the Progressive Professionals Forum. I serve in various boards at national entities. My question, I would like to appreciate first the work that is done by Brics, but my comment is, as Mam Nkosazana Zuma has said, I must say you always inspire me, Mama Zuma. I remember there was a session you were invited by PPF in 2015, where you were a guest speaker. Mamu Danisa was still in the executive. And you emphasized in that session that we must make sure we utilize, we get into the marine space. And I listened and implemented. Even today, there's a lot that is a take home. But my worry is with Brics, all the structures, presidential, ministerial, Sherpa, there's only 20% women. What are we doing to make sure that these capable women here, they represent us, to make sure the voice of women is part of the decision making? So I challenge everyone who can to make sure that at least we have committees that are formed within these levels, where the capable women who always inspire us will be part of those structures. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think, Madam Chair, Slib, would you like to comment on her build? The question is essentially where to from here?
Thank you, Madam Jimama. I hear you. It's not really a question, it's a proposition.
Yes.
And you're quite right. With zero representation at presidential level, with only 1 out of 5 ministers representing the voice of 1.6 billion, and with only 1 Sherpa representing the voice of 1.6 billion, I couldn't agree with you more that while we are not seeking to propose that in the declaration we have suddenly go and vote for a female president, while we may not have such an opportunity, however, we do have an opportunity to incorporate in the declaration the establishment of advisory committees that could serve at presidential level, that could serve at ministerial level, and that could serve at Sherpa level. We've got absolutely brilliant queens in this room. Dr. Arikana Chihombori, and all the other queens that are in this room that have what it takes to represent us at those different levels. So what we are going to wish to propose, Minister, through your permission, and I'm looking at the Deputy Minister as well, Deputy Minister Gina, to say we are going to include, as a proposition, the establishment of the Brics Women Advisory Committees that will serve at presidential level, Brics presidential level, that will also serve at ministerial level, and that will also serve at Sherpa level, so that the voices of women are elevated and the queens that are representing us at that level are supported. And I do hope that that proposition will be well received by yourselves, my leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Chair. Very clear. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much for honoring this session. Thank you very much. We've learned so much. Thank you.
Please, let's give them a round of applause as they descend from the stage. Our next component is a summation of discussion and proposals and resolutions. To do this, as she comes to the stage, may I introduce Ms. Lebo Mabije Thompson, who is the Deputy Director General in the Department of Trade and Industry within the country since 2014. Her role includes developing and administering an attractive and competitive incentive program to promote productive investment into the country. She oversees funding programs for industrial infrastructure development, firm-level competitiveness enhancement, export promotion, innovation, investors having to invest, industry associations, organized labor, and other government departments. And she also oversees interactions with academic institutions. And she's worked in a number of industries, which I will not mention, but suffice to say that she is a very well-vested as in trade and industry. She'd worked in this industry for 8 years, and in here, undertaking various roles. She holds a master's degree in globalization and economic development from the University of Belgium, Bachelor of Commerce honors from Nelson Mandela, Port Elizabeth.
Well done, very proud of you.
And also has business management under her belt. I hand over to her to give her the summations and resolutions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would also join the previous speakers in standing on the protocol that had been observed during the day, in recognizing the leaders that are here and all the valued guests. My name is Malebo Mabije Thompson, currently Acting Director General of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. I've been asked to do the most difficult job, which is to sum up what everybody has said, and not just do that, because I think the DM is going to do a proper summary, but also propose actionable actions to take the discussions forward. So I did complain to Madam Mukari that this is very difficult. So I'm raising this so that, bear with me if I don't quote you correctly, but I do hope that I'll be able to summarize everything. But I'm sure everyone would agree that this has been a useful discussion that is timely and that we need to take forward and have it to be much more structured, much more outcome-oriented, so that we ourselves can start measuring ourselves on some of the things that we are saying need to be done, and in doing so, hold ourselves accountable to future generations as women about what it is that we did that pave the way for those that come after us. And this important thing of holding each other to account is very, 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 very key. So I'll start by just reminding us of 3 important statements that were made. I'm not going to take them in the order of the speakers. I'll just mention them as I go along in trying to come up with proposals and resolutions. So the first, we heard that it is possible. We were told it is possible. And when you hear those words, they become easy words if you don't understand the scale of the problem. But the scale of the problem, as was discussed today, we heard women indicating some of the difficulties that women still face in terms of a gender gap in access to opportunities, legal framework, cultural issues that still push women back, that needs to be dealt with, the lack of networks and mentorships. We had the gender biases and stereotypes among women and between men and women that are also issues that hold women back. And then we didn't hear a lot, but certain of the things came up about the responsibility of women, whether you rise to the highest office in the land, still have to breastfeed, you still have to take care of family, still have to do all of those roles that are unique to women, and roles sometimes that society won't let go for us to be freed from doing. But the Premier reminded us, with all those in check, it is possible. Then we were given another statement, that in this possibility is an option of whether you go at it alone or you go with others. And we were reminded again that you can walk fast, but you will get not too far. But if we choose to walk together, we can go further. And we should not allow ourselves to be divided. Minister is not here. You know, I'm a public official, so I can only do this because Minister is not here anymore. Immediately after she said that, she even pulled back into her chair. Like, don't allow yourselves to be divided, which is really a good lesson in life. And I think we just got 3 master's lessons in one session about how to reorientate our mind. Then we were told, again by the distinguished doctor, that yes, as women, we've got a perpetual headache. And that headache, she said, there's an issue here with our minds. She wasn't talking about it just about women, she was talking about it as Africans. But I looked at it and I said, yes, we need a Panado or whatever it is to help us deal with this headache. And she was raising it. Now I'm gonna come with some of the little Panado, paracetamol, whatever it is, I'm not a doctor, that is going to help us start to deal with some of these things as we're raised. One of the important matters that were raised in the first panel was around information deficit, that we are left out of important rooms because we don't have the information that allows us to come in. And then a resolution or even a proposal was made that as far as trade is concerned, why don't we think at least about a digital trade solution that could, in the context of Brics, allow an African woman to be able to know what the opportunities are there in India. Maybe they might have capability to serve those opportunities from the southernmost tip of Africa. And the proposition that was made is, let's think about a trade solution that could be put in place. My deputy minister is here, Deputy Minister Gina. She never finishes a sentence without a time frame. So just to make sure I'm observing proper protocol, I then said, why don't we do it in 3 months, if not sooner? Because the capabilities are not in Mars or Venus, the capabilities are among African women amongst us. And Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma said that let's find the women that can help us put that type of a portal in place. And therefore we lead by example. We found them, they've developed it, it is helping other women. So that was one of the first proposals. And then the second proposal was around organizational structure. It's a series of proposals there. And I think in there, our leaders were telling us that we are the saviors we've been waiting for. Nobody's coming to save us. So we better jack up and get going. And they're saying to us that perhaps when it comes to some of even the institutions that are already established, let us look at ways that we can make those institutions women-friendly, women-biased, because there's no problem with a women biasness. We can demand that there are women bias, and we wouldn't be out of place for demanding that. And then the big proposal around that is for the Brics Bank in their analysis of projects. Why should they not be biased towards women and projects that women are part of? Why should there not be capital that is set aside to support women to be part of some of these projects? And what we were hearing our leaders telling us is that no, in the matrix of consideration of these projects, let us ensure that women entrepreneurs are given a special place, and that is recognized in the money, in the way that the projects are structured to help women. So the Brics Bank or the NDB has a big thing that they need to go back and look at, both in terms of women as entrepreneurs and projects that will benefit women to go forward. Can they be a matrix that looks at women and prioritizes women in the way that the monies that are capitalizing the Brics Bank are used in various member states? Then on trade opportunities, we heard our leaders telling us that why don't we facilitate formation of joint ventures, which is something that this very Women Business Alliance should be at the forefront of, assisting with these women to meet, to form relationships that facilitate joint ventures. And then we were told that no, in actual fact, in some of our own institutions, you can get project preparation, you can get various support that is already available. And we want, in the context of the joint ventures, allowance that we will be able to tap into that funding. And for that reason, we are saying, DBSA, what are you putting in place to help women to be able to venture jointly with other women here in South Africa, here on the African continent, or other Brics member states, in order to take advantage of the investment propositions that are in the Brics. And then there were sectors that were mentioned. I'm very fascinated about the proposition of women manufacturing tractors. And I'm not an entrepreneur in that way, but if there is an entrepreneur here, trust me, you've got your supporter number one. If you're coming and saying, I heard the message that we do need to take our agricultural sector forward, even if it is not tractors, but I'm coming with capital equipment that will assist farmers to be more productive in rural areas. Supporter number one here, but these are some of the outcomes of the discussion that were had. Then another important matter that we always kind of not look at when we are dealing with matters of economy, of trade, of investment. We were reminded that there's a role for women in development of skills, and that role should also be enshrined in the manner in which projects are packaged, supported within the context of Brics. And that would be one of the demands that the women out of this conference are going to be making to the Brics formation, to say we can be part of the solution to provide skills for the economy, and we want projects and a facility that allow our projects to do so, particularly in rural areas, to be created so that we can be part of a solution. And then there was a discussion about the African diaspora in the various formation. And the request was, South Africa, wouldn't you be the portal through which the diaspora enters the discussion in Brics and becomes part of the solution? And then on that note, I heard from the various speakers that yes, that is a cry that the women from this conference would want to take to the leaders as part of our outcomes of discussion today. Learning from best practice was another area that was raised. And it was raised in the context that while we know what we know, there may be other solutions that we also need to incorporate. And what was being proposed was that let's have skills exchange programs that allows us to share what we know with the rest of the BRICS member states, while we also leverage on what solutions they may have put up in order to deal particularly with the issue of poverty and getting women to the center of economic activity away from the periphery. And the proposition that was being made there is, can we have a skills exchange program targeted at women, targeted at solving problems that are pertinent to women, whether they are in rural areas or urban areas, whether they are in academia or even in various other sectors, so that we will be able through this to bring women also to the center of decision-making within the BRICS context. A statement was made about us using consumer power in order to deal with some of the issues that sometimes bedevil us as women, the way women are treated in the workplace, the way that we are treated even as we interact in the rest of the economy. I'm going to leave this to the organizers to see how do we campaign with the member states to take this point forward, such that where there is discrimination, women within BRICS are able to raise this firmly and be able to be the ones that are leading also the solutions to address that. The other issue that was raised was the issue of collective action among women, create and provide a platform for indigenous institutions such as to be used. And remember the Stockfells, we call them Stockfells here. They are there in India, they are called something else. They are there in Brazil, they are called, rest of the world, they are called something else. They've got one thing in common. They are for the disadvantaged and those that have been shunned by the formal financial sector. And there's a lot of money in there. What does the BRICS do different that then recognizes and attributes value to the institutions of those that are indigenous in a way that helps them to come into the center of decision-making through changing those institutions to make them more about investment and also assist them to help the participants to deal with their issues relating to poverty. Chairperson, I hope I have summarized the discussions in the way that you wanted me to, and that the solutions as put forward really reflect the value that this discussion has been. I thank you.
Thank you so much for that summation and presenting the resolutions, which is an important component because that allows us to have a compass of where we are going. Without a compass, remember, we are lost, given that the world is so huge. Our next component would be a component of reflections, as I announce on our next speaker, who's our Deputy Minister within Trade and Economic Development. May I please request that she comes to stage as I'm introducing her. Deputy Minister Nomalunga Nogina is the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry and Economic Development. The Deputy Minister is a teacher by profession. I seem to think that a lot of people have content in this room, and that's what we are about, and has taught at Utungulu District for more than 15 years. She was part of the African Democratic Teachers Union, SATU, a site steward at a North Coast Regional Educational convener for many years. Our Deputy Minister spearheaded the Teachers Development Curriculum Management Programs and Women Leadership Seminars within the province. Our Minister has spearheaded a lot of areas and battles in relation to the working conditions of teachers. She served at National Parliament at various committees, which she contributed toward the policy development in this country. She is from Indwedwe within this district, hence her passion in terms of rural development and the empowerment of women in the rural areas. Minister, to give us a reflection of today.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me greet Minister. He's just out. She will be coming back. Greetings to you, Premier. Greetings to the panelists. Let me not even start to do this thing. Let me greet everyone in this in this sitting today. You are all greeted. We are all important. We are the queens of today because we are here to pave a way forward for our women in our country. Program Director, I just want to start here where I remind the House of the pronouncement that was done by President Cyril Ramaphosa in August 2020 in the height of COVID-19. We'll all remember where the President announced a 40% public procurement set aside for women-owned businesses. I think that was a day where we were all excited in South Africa. We said, yes, there is something that is coming on our tables as women, and that's the thing that you are all looking at. This announcement, it meant government departments and all state-owned entities, nationally, provincially, and locally, must allocate all the government contracts to women-owned companies to make sure that we cover that 40%. In 2021, I remember I had an opportunity where I addressed a webinar on gender commission. This is the question I asked. I said, do you have any monitoring mechanism of this implementation as women leaders in government? Seated all here, can we say, is there anything that we are doing to monitor that? Is there anything that is moving when it comes to that? I was happy when Umamu Nkosazana was here to say, maybe as the minister who is leading there and her DG, I don't see her now, as to say, those are the things where we are saying we hope and believe that her department is going to be leading us on that. We are going to see all the structures of government making sure that when it comes to that 40%, because that can make a huge dent on us seated here in making sure that whatever we produce, whatever our companies are, but the departments are procuring from women here. So it's one thing that I urge all of us that we put an eye on that, we make the follow-up on that so that we can see our strides as women as to say, where is it, where are we going to? As women, we must applaud DBSA for having developed the Women in Business division as part of the gender mainstreaming for women in business. Pinky was here, Ms. Ngato, and we are saying, Ms. Ngato, all of us here will be monitoring that very closely. And I even urge all women here to approach DBSA and nudge it for these opportunities that have been presented to us here. So if we don't take up that, really it's us who must go there, you must go there and knock and say, DBSA, we know this and it must be adhered to. Until and unless we become business activists like Brics Women Business Alliance, the agenda of growing women business into a large corporations will remain a pipe dream. Again, that is the mindset, the thinking that we must be having as we move out of this, as to say, it's us who must stand up and make sure that we make these things possible. As we approach Brics Summit, we must go there as Africans to fight for South Africa and Africa first to benefit from being the members of Brics. That is what we must do. We agree with Dr. Arugana, I won't be able to pronounce, Shiombore, thank you, that South Africa And Africa is far behind in terms of trade balances between itself and other BRIC countries. I'm saying here, the question that we must ask ourselves is, how many women millionaires and even more in South Africa, in Africa, do we have compared to other BRICS members? This will definitely tell us the journey that is still ahead of us. We still have a long journey to travel. But women across BRICS must show us one important thing. That important thing is that women can unite across borders to support each other on growing business and create markets for themselves in these 5 countries that you are gathered here for. Joint ventures, it has been mentioned, and other forms of partnerships within Africa and across BRICS countries by women must be encouraged. We must network together as women. We must make sure that we stop this unnecessary competition. Queens here, that sometimes you even find competition in the level of leaders, of leadership level, where we seem to fight for a space instead of complementing each other, making sure that we open up even more fertile grounds for women to come in. But you find our leaders fighting just because they want to be recognized at the expense of other women. So I think that is one other message that has come up clearly today, is to say, let us try by all means to move away from that and make sure that we unite to create more conducive environment for our women to strive and make sure that they succeed. Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma has raised a very important point here, that our engagement with BRICS must be about creating Africa that we want. Colonizers, we all know, they created Africa that they wanted or they want, and we still live within that mindset that they've created. Again, as we reflect, we all agree that it's time to change. Let us move away from that space now. We agree that women must get into all sectors, starting from innovation, retail, engineering, mining, and other sectors. BRICS women in business must lead and change and charge and make sure that they are in charge, and also encourage more women to get into these male-dominated sectors, as they were called. We are here today, and from the discussions, from the panelists, from what we got here, we are saying there is no sector now that must be continued to be labeled as the male-dominated, because from the words where the Premier was opening, she said, it is possible. There is nothing that will stop us to make sure that we invade and we get into those sectors. As the discussions are continuing here, I was reminded that in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, we had an opportunity where we are leading on processes of development on the social solidarity economy policy, where, yes, we are almost there, but from what Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma was saying, we were saying it, indeed, we can partner there. There is something that we can work, that as government we can work on. But I'm proud to stand here and say, whilst even that policy is still being developed, IDC has started to fund these enterprises where they are relieving hunger from our communities. And I will urge again our women seated here is to say, those are other opportunities for you that are there. IDC does have that fund where we are saying the companies that are there, mostly in the rural areas, mostly led by women, there is a huge fund that they are being assisted so that we can try and relieve even the stress that our women are faced with. How do we take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade area, which has a strong women empowerment elements? Again, as we reflect, that is the area where we need to look at. What I'm saying and encouraging is that we as women, let us get information on around the issues of African Continental Free Trade Agreement and say, what is it that we can get? What is it that we can benefit from there. And we have heard Ms. Paulina Lago, she has said in mouthful as to say, what benefits can we get there? And standing here is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. One thing that we have agreed upon is to say in each and every district across South Africa, let us make sure, let us go to those district premier and say, what is the product, what is it that the district can come up with and say, this is what I can contribute with into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And women, those are the opportunities that are there, and we hope and believe that we are going to be getting quite a number of women that are going to be contributing towards that. I am excited again that intra-African trade fairs are growing strongly as they are being led by Afrimexim Bank and African Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretary. It is sitting in Egypt. We must get involved with it for networking and also to build trade. But let us not leave behind the rural women. In whatever platform that you are there, make sure that when it comes to the development and the capacitation of women, the rural women are part of that. The new development bank of Brics must lead us on women bias support. It is led by women. Former Brazil president, Brics Women Business Alliance must engage more with the Bank for Women project at large in Brics. So really, this forum, the Women Business Alliance, I hope and believe you are going to take that lead and make sure that we bring along a lot of women with you. The biggest takeaway, again, that I want to go back to, that we have found in this dialogue has been unity of women to build their businesses. Let us stop competition, but let us complement each other. Let us make sure that across the BRIC countries, we complement each other, we learn from each other, we use such platforms to network so as to build ourselves. Bafazi, again, let us unite. It is possible to win these battles for the economic emancipation and progress. We must unite and we must never look back. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so very much, Deputy Minister, for those words. And clearly, our path is being cleared for us to drive through this with ease. Our next and final item is a vote of thanks from Ms. Ipeleng Mkari, who's the Secretariat Brics Women Business Alliance. As I introduce her, she's making her way quite slowly, given her challenge. Ms. Ipeleng Mkari holds a degree in psychology and industrial psychology. She is a pioneering entrepreneur with over 21 years experience in various disciplines, including asset management, infrastructure, investing, logistic, and industrial manufacturing. She established the first Black-owned CCTV business and co-founder and CEO of Motseng Investment Holdings, a diversified investment holdings group. She has been awarded a number of prestigious awards and is the past president of the South African Property Owners Association, SAPOA. She has played a pioneering role in the early transformation of the sector. I hand over to you and also want to thank you for allowing me to drive the program today. Thank you so much. Over to you, Madam
Bongwe, Makhosikazi malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe. Malibongwe, malibongwe, malibongwe,
Makhosikazi nikuphi?
Mafuma hadi halibongwe, ibizo lamafuma hadi halibongwe. Diyachiswa, 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 diyachiswa.
Siyabonga sanibonani. Sifuna ukunibonga. Makhosikazi sifuna ukunibonga. Good afternoon. It has been a very powerful, inspiring, uplifting, insightful, revealing day. And I stand here in awe and feeling very, very